Hello and welcome back to IndieCent. We're still working on the intro tagline. I'm sorry.
Or are we?
Isn't that just the intro
Maybe that's our
tagline now?
intro tagline.
What is our tagline?
That is.
We don't have one.
Okay.
Welcome
That
to
is the
IndieCent.
tagline.
What is our tagline?
Anyways, welcome back. Today we will be doing a special episode on panel choice.
Woo!
It's where each of the members of our panel here get to pick one game that's a little too small for a full episode, but a little too big for or expensive for a Steam grab bag episode. So everyone's picked out a game. I chose Verdict Guilty, a fighting game with a cyberpunk Korea theme. Elmo picked out Gunman Clive, a Mega Man style platformer with cowboys and guns. And Danny picked out VVVVVV, a rather now famous indie platformer where you control gravity and there's a sad elephant near the space station too, apparently. I'm reading from my notes on that one.
Oh, the elephant.
But anyways, as usual, before we get to our main event, I'd like to know what we've all been playing, get a little idea of what we've been doing, and why don't we start with Danny?
Okay. I've been thinking a lot about this because I was like, it's been like a month. I played a lot of games. There were like 4 different types of games I wanted to talk about, but to cut down for time, there were 2 games I started this week that I'll leave for the next episode because I only started them this week and maybe I'll have them finished. Well, one of them I can't actually finish, but I'll have absorbed more of. So I'll stick to two of the ones I want to go to. First of all, a few weeks ago, I finally beat Persona 5.
Nice.
I think it was like 95 hours, which was a little under my Persona 3 playthrough. And I never finished 4 because 4 is bad. But that's a really good game. That is a really good game. I believe I don't know how many episodes ago it would have been, where I probably said, yeah, I was playing Persona 5, but then I think I got to the end, or like near the end, and it started really railroading me, and like I didn't want to beat the game. I didn't want it to end, and like finally.
Oh yeah, I remember you saying that.
Yeah, and so
I forget what episode it was though.
it was probably a while ago because I think I haven't played since like early June, like right before the May DLC dropped. Was the last time I played, I think.
Damn.
That was a few months ago, and the news of Persona 3 and Persona 5 dancing all night kind of rekindled my desire to play, and I was like, yeah, I'll finish this. And so I booted up.
For me, it just made me sad.
Eh.
Because then I remembered all the Persona 4 spin-offs.
You know what? I'm on board with it. Make it goofy as hell. I don't care. Ruin that canon. Just give me dancing games with Hatsune Miku in them. But yeah, so I was completely wrong about where I was in the game. I found that out. Like, I had saved on a day that was like right before you actually get freedom back and it stops railroading you for plot stuff. And then it's like, hey, it's the same game. You're back to just hanging out with your friends, which is my favorite part of the game. And I was like, wow, I kind of jumped the gun on calling this. And I had like 20 hours left in the game. In actuality.
Oh, you just reminded me of that Persona 4 does something similar, but in the weirdest way, because the last month of the game, the entire town is shrouded in fog, and it's all dirty and gray, and just like everyone's doing a normal thing and doesn't even seem to notice the incoming death cloud.
So it's England.
We're not nearly that nice.
Touche. But
yeah, but that always stuck out to me.
Yeah, I did not get that far in Persona 4. I dropped out like right after the drag show. That was when I just like tossed my controller. I was like, I'm done. Can't take any more of this. But yeah, Persona 5, just huge step up in like every way. Specifically the character writing, which I loved, and I get some of the complaints people have about, like, they give a lot of depth to certain characters early on, but then as they shift to focus on more characters, those characters kind of just sort of go into jokes a little bit. And like, I see that and I recognize that. I don't think it's a problem, because you can't really focus on all the characters at once. You gotta kind of make room for others. And I like introducing characters, giving them all this depth before you kind of give them a formula and make them jokey a little bit, have fun with them. I like that. I like I was actually just talking with someone last night about how, like, Love Live Sunshine does that. It introduces characters, giving them this backstory, and really rounds them out, and then kind of returns them to being sitcom characters. And I think that's a good method. It's something I like.
It's kind of weird you mentioned that, because that's like the opposite formula for the first 3 Persona games. Like, the first 2 just start you off in the shit right away.
Oh, so we're talking about England again.
And number 3 just gets like progressively emo for a long stretch of time. Just like 7 months in the game.
And also, for those games, I don't really like the cast. One of the weakest parts of both those games, I think. And
it's one of the big problems I have with 3. And I really hate all the spin-offs for 3 because they make the characters even weaker.
I never played The Answer. Everyone was like, don't play that. So I never played it. But,
heck, don't even the Persona 4 fighting game is kind of a slap in the face to him. Especially what they did with Junpei, and he wasn't that great to begin with.
Huh. All I know, I hear Persona Q kind of like really dumbed down a lot of the characters. Like,
oh yeah, the entire point of that game is like all the P3 and P4 characters were just memes of themselves.
Yeah, and it was like Akihiko's just stupid punchy guy. Kind of like, I guess, my complaint about Sonic Boom, how Knuckles goes from cool to just meathead. It sounds like that's what happens to Akihiko.
He's not a meathead, but all of his character can pretty much be summed up as eat protein.
So
and that's it.
Which
was a problem that started with the fighting games, so you can sense my frustration. Yeah. Plus, I really hate what they did with one of the bad guys from Persona 4, because I don't know if you want to go. I don't know. I don't want to spoil it for anyone.
Yeah, we won't give off Persona 4 spoilers, even though that game's like almost 10 years old. But we won't.
I don't want to, because I do think it's a legitimately cool twist they pull. But basically, the Inaba killer in Persona 4 is an attempted rapist, and then the second Persona 4 fighting game, they decide to basically make him Deadpool. You can understand my sheer frustration with those games, with that fact alone.
Yeah.
So be careful liking Persona 5, because Atlas can ruin it all with spin-offs galore pretty fast.
Yeah, if they come out with when Persona 5 Dancing All Night comes out, and if they've got like Kamoshida out there being just yucking it up, I'm gonna be a little nope.
It looks like the dancing games won't have a story this time.
Oh, that's so good.
Thank God.
Because all I knew about the Persona 4 Dancing All Night story, I didn't even know it had a story until I found this out, but it had an Okama character.
The only plus side of it is it made Miku a canon character in the Persona series.
That's actually really good. Needs to happen.
What else have you been playing?
Yeah, Persona 5's great. I love it. Solid 9 out of 10. Not my game of the year, because that's Nier Automata. But solid number 2. And I don't think anything this year can top that. Can surpass it. So what else I've been playing? Last week I went up to DC for Otakon, and didn't.
Could you say that again?
I went up to DC for Otakon last weekend, and
Oh yeah, I saw you talking about it on Twitter.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. I don't do a lot of panels at cons, and I usually just hang out in dealer's room, artist alley, look around at cool stuff. Something I've always wanted to do though is spend more time in the video game room. Specifically, like at the smaller cons I've been to, they're just kind of eh. But Otakon last year when I went, I was like, holy shit, there's some cool stuff here. But I only played a couple times because I was with other people who didn't really want to hang out there a lot of the time, and I understood we were really busy then. But I had a lot of time on my hands this Otakon, so I spent a lot of time in the game room, and so I've got some Japanese arcade cabinets to talk about. First of all, like I think I played 5 different games. Like I played around at Tekken 7 on the arcade machine, and that was fun. I didn't know what I was doing. I got my ass kicked, and it was so much fun getting my ass kicked. Because I was just going up against this guy because you get the 2 cabinets right by each other. You get on one, someone gets on the other, and you fight each other. And I guess the etiquette for fighting games at conventions is loser leaves, which I don't think that's quite fair, but oh well. But so loser leaves. So there's just one guy who the whole time I was waiting, he was just kicking everyone's ass. And I go up, and I'm just like, hey, this is like my first time playing. He's like, so just letting you know. And he kicked my ass. I won 1 game, not like a whole match. I just won a single round. I don't know how I did it, but that was fun, and it was a lot of fun getting my ass beat just because I sucked. I know I suck, so I could just laugh about it. So I played 1 game of that, and I was like, okay, I'm done. It's Tekken 7. I'll pick up the PS4 game sometime because I really want to play that. I played 1 run. I forgot to look up the name of it, but it's a Gundam cabinet, and it's just out. I've heard a lot about it from like YouTubers who go to Japan and like talk about the arcades, and it's a Gundam cockpit, and it's got screens like all around you, and you have your 2 joysticks with different buttons on them. You got foot pedals, and you got your big ass seat, and you got buttons on the side, and you just pilot a Gundam in kind of like a team battle thing. And so I played a game of that. The experience was fun. The game itself was just kind of boring. Not much to talk about, but the experience of just being in that makeshift cockpit was fun.
That's a good way to describe Gundam games in general.
Yeah.
Cool concept, kind of boring to play because Japan's only interested in the clunky tank version of it.
Mm-hmm. The cabinets I spent the most time on were the rhythm games. 1, because they had the most of those, so the lines were shortest. But also, rhythm game cabinets, like Japanese rhythm game cabinets, are so much fun. I had, like, the most fun I had at that convention was playing on these cabinets. So I'll go up in order from the ones I played the least to the ones I played the most. I played one called Groove Coaster. Like, I played that once, and that was a lot of fun. The thing I love about like all these Japanese rhythm game arcade setups is just the different ways the different types of control you have. And so for this one, it's just like 2 big buttons, and they're kind of like joysticks. They move little, and then they've got buttons on the top, and you choose a little avatar, and it's just kind of like the avatar rides along this sort of roller coaster, this straight shot, and you got your different types of inputs. You can hit the button, you can or you can like move it like a joystick in a certain direction, and you can play the game entirely with one or with both if you want to alternate. And then the only reason you need both is for when you have to hit both at once. And so that was a fun form. I couldn't quite get the hang of it just because I think my hands are too small. Because they were big joysticks. And you have to be able to like grip them to move them, but also be able to hit the button on top. And I couldn't really get that right. But it was fun. I loved the music selection. It had stuff from Crypt of the Necrodancer. And
oh yeah, I own that. It is good as hell.
And Danganronpa. I didn't play those. I played the ending theme for season 1 of Sound Euphonium. And that was fun to play on that. So if you ever at a con that has Groove Coaster, check it out. It's a lot of fun. Search up that anime music. The next one I played a little bit more of, I played a couple times, was called Beat Stream. And that one, the input on it is basically you just have two big LCD screens. One to look at the top, which you never actually look at, so it's just really gratuitous. And then the other on the bottom, that's a touch screen, and that's your input. You got a little circle at the center, and you got notes coming into the circle, and when they hit the circle, you gotta hit those notes. Some of them you gotta slash them, some of them you gotta tap. You have some on around the circle that you gotta hit, and then you also have rare inputs where you have to drag your hand across the entire screen like in different motions. And that was really fun, because especially the parts where you drag your whole hand across the screen, because it gets like the whole body involved. So I was really getting into it and leaning my body. And underneath on the touchscreen, underneath all the notes coming in, you're seeing like different animations playing for every song, and seeing them on the LCD screen above you. And so great presentation. And sound selection, I didn't recognize a lot of stuff, but the one I just played over and over again was the Death Parade opening, which is a really good song, and that was so much fun to play. And it was the only song I could actually do well on the second tier difficulty, just because I knew it so well already, so I could like see, oh, it's probably going to be this note deck. And that was a lot of fun. But the one I loved the most, You Beat Cubel. It's a cube. You like the entire input, the entire screen, like you have a little screen for song for like tracking your score and stuff, but you're not looking at the screen. You're looking at your controller in front of you, which isn't a controller. It's a touch screen split up into 4 rows of 3 squares, and you just gotta touch them all on the beat. They get a little animation that plays when you gotta hit them, and you have like a brief second to hit them to get your perfect, or like you mess up your score, you get a miss. That one had a great selection of songs. It had the only anime music I recognized were a bunch of Doga Kobo shows. Like it had Himoto music, it had Yuri Yuri music, it had New Game music. Those were okay to play as. But then I saw it had some Kiari Pamu Pamu, and so I got the Pon 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 going, and that was really fun. Because that was a great song for the setup. Because like you got your notes that go rising and falling, and so you gotta like actually, your hand has to move like up the screen with rising notes and down with notes that go lower. Your whole body is just really getting involved because you're all over the place, and it's so active and fun. And I found I somehow randomly found a dubstep song from an artist I can't remember, because all the text in Japanese, so it's kind of hard to read. And
was it Skrillex?
No, I think it was called Rice or something. I can't remember, but that was very satisfying to play. Like EDM dubstep, that is a very satisfying way to play that to play on that arcade machine. And I mean, it had tons of music. I couldn't go through all, but I played that one a lot, and it was my favorite. And yeah, I can see why gamers in Japan dedicate their lives to these things and get super good, because I had a ton of fun, and people there at the convention were just beasting it, like just all over the place, perfect, and like on the highest difficulties where it's just lights up everywhere, like every single square, and you gotta hit them all, and oh, it's a lot of fun. Just look up some gameplay of it. If you're going to a convention and they got that in the game room, check it out once. Again, that one's called You Beat Q-Bell. It's hard to spell out. Jubeat Qubell. You Beat Q-Bell. Those are my games. Aside from the ones I will be able to talk more about next episode.
Okay, sounds good. What about you, Elmo?
Well, speaking of somebody going to an arcade and kicking everyone's ass, well, you may have been at an actual convention with, features and things to have fun, but I went to a shitty game shop in Croydon where they had one arcade machine and nobody knows why, but do you know what game it's stuck on?
What?
Street Fighter the movie, the game. And I spent, my friend went there to pick up a laptop that was broken, and there were some problems with it, so he was at the laptop counter, and I was just there, and you can play for free, and I spent about 2 hours just really annoying everyone else by just picking Ryu, and just being like, Hadouken, Hadouken, Hadouken. The best bit was, I've played it once before. I played one game as Ryu and one game as Akuma, because I know the secret to Street Fighter the movie, the game, which is that if somebody else picks Ryu and starts Hadoukening you, you can just pick Akuma and just duck, and they all just go straight over your head. So I ruined some people's day.
That is the best game for your machine to just be stuck on. If you just have one machine. It's not Street Fighter. It's not Street Fighter. It's Street Fighter the movie. The game.
The game. The movie. The game. The motion picture.
I've seen gameplay of that. That game looks great.
It's really good. Well, I won it at a bunch, so it must be good.
Oh yeah.
It's amazing that they had the rights to a Street Fighter game and they went with a Mortal Kombat ripoff.
I can't remember the names of any of them in particular. You know those puzzle bobble type games where you shoot balls into the sky and you have to get groups of 3?
Oh, Bust-A-Move?
Yeah. Because a while back when I went to this game shop, there was actually a setup option and you could choose the game, and I picked a game that looked like that. And it was a game that looked like that, only I didn't realise, but when you finish the game, a pixelated but still quite clear naked woman just came up on the screen. And I just legged it from the machine. It was like, I didn't do that. That was...
You will be amazed, but there was an entire small industry of just softcore versions of arcade games for a while in the 90s. I know, I think one of those shooters Konami puts out, I think Parabolas or whatever however it's pronounced, has an entire official subsection of sexy versions of it.
And those types of games still exist, and Dark buys them on Steam.
No, I don't buy them. Come on, I don't.
What
I
was
don't
that?
buy them.
Didn't
I
you get
them.
what was it?
Oh yeah, the pretty girl games. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The Mahjong ones.
Yeah, the Mahjong one.
Yeah, I have a problem.
I have a pretty serious problem. I live in England.
You're too good at Street
Any
Fighter
other
the
games?
movie, the game.
No, I have been playing a few, but none of them are that big. I played Mario Picross because I hate myself. And then I finished it and started playing Picross Touch on Steam because I still hate myself. I played both of the Splinter Cell games on Game Boy Advance.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. They are about 50% oh, this isn't as bad as I expected, and about 50%, this is exactly as bad as I expected. Because I want to say you can't make a good 2D stealth game, but Gunpoint, Mark of the Ninja, Stealth Bastard. It's more you can't make a good 2D stealth game on Game Boy Advance. But they're not terrible. The only big game I've been playing lately is Lisa, which I
Ooh.
can't really talk about because if we're doing a podcast about indie video games, it's basically the law that we're going to come to Lisa sooner or later. But
yeah, we're gonna have to look at all 3 games. It's wow.
I do definitely think I have some more problems with it.
Yeah, it's 3 games. The original Lisa, which was sort of like a Yume Nikki thing, and then there's the Lisa you see on Steam, Lisa the Painful, which includes Lisa the Joyful, which was like a Kickstarter expanded episode.
Yeah.
So
it's technically 3 games.
Yeah. I think it's safe to say that it's tearing me apart, Lisa.
No.
God damn it.
It's... I don't want to get into it too much, obviously, but it's really, really good, and at the same time, I have a bunch of problems with it. So, tune in many, many episodes to hear us talk about Lisa.
Let me go ahead and get started with my list because I have 6 games here.
Oh boy.
Don't worry, I'll try and be quick because I think we may talk about a few in the future. For the next I decided to get started on my full core series again. And if you remember last time, I was trying to do that for Mass Effect, but then I came back to it and my save was gone. And I had already replayed the first half of the game 3 times now and did not want to do that again. So instead I moved on to Alan Wake. We'll be covering that in the future with Joe for an October special. But basically it's sort of like... How do I put this? It's like if you mix together Stephen King, Twin Peaks, and then added a layer of self-awareness, so it has far more in common thematically with Homestuck, and you have Alan Wake. It's fucking wild, I swear. I finished that. I have the article for that done. It should be out in 2 weeks by the time you're listening to this for anyone who's not backing my Patreon. So I decided to replay Randall's Monday, a point-and-click from Dedede, a German company, that when I first played it, I felt was surprisingly good because it looks like the worst thing ever made. It has a Go Animate Family Guy art style to it, and on replay I am noticing a few more crappy jokes, but they kind of stop after the first day of it, and it starts picking up. It's basically about a complete asshole who ends up getting this magic ring that puts him on an infinite time loop where it's always Monday, except whenever he affects anything during one of these days, the time loop rewrites things so what he did stays in the loop, and it writes in an excuse for it, and things get absolutely wild by the end of it. I figured I'd talk about it because it's filled with so many references, including just straight up Jay and Silent Bob as story important characters, that I figured it'd be interesting to talk about. Other than that, I've been playing Chronicles of Teddy again for Hardcore Gaming 101, and it's taking me so long because I want to like it, but it's like a giant pile of constant annoyances.
Speaking of England... That's going to be my running joke today.
Speaking of characters named Teddy.
No, the first Teddy game, Finding Teddy, was just a weird little point and click where you could watch a little girl die in 12 different ways, and it was weird and neat. But Chronicles of Teddy, the sequel, decided to be Zelda 2 meets Castlevania, and it's kind of a giant mess. It's beautiful, but it's all the mechanics don't quite fit the way they should. They work, but whenever something happens to you in this game, it doesn't feel like it's your fault. It feels like it's kind of bullshit, but not in a really obvious way. It's just endlessly grating, frustrating, some noise you can't find the source of. Other than that, I've been playing Fallout New Vegas, which I'm gonna put on hold until I get all the DLC, and it's starts out really strong, and I want to play more of it. I've also went ahead and bought Planescape Torment since I want to do a full course on that. It's basically what 1,000 angry, ugly nerds claim is the best game ever made on endless loop forever. So I figured I might as well just go ahead and play it. And did you know this was a Dungeons and Dragons game?
Oh, no.
Also, did you know that Rob Paulson, the voice of Yakko from Animaniacs, plays a horny, living, talking skull who wants dead pussy? I'm not making that up. That is actually the talking, sassy skull's character, played by Rob Paulson. And my childhood died a little inside when I found this out. Oh, and apparently Dan Castanella, the voice of Homer Simpson, is somewhere in this game, like as some wizard or something. So that's going to be amazing. I just keep finding surprises with this thing. And like, I'm really impressed with it, and I just barely started it. It has a lot of freedom. It has this weird morality and seems to be all about what the importance of death is in society. So I'm interested to see where it's going with this. And the last game I've been playing for like the entire summer is Love Nikki Dress Up Queen. This is like the only thing I've been playing on my phone, and I can't stop. It's just a fucking dress up game with like gotcha elements, but I can't stop playing it. Everyone's like playing Fate Go and shit like that, and here I am playing the fucking dress up game. I apologize for nothing.
Sounds about right.
Anyways, that's all I've been playing lately. Let's go ahead and move into our main discussion. Okay, Elmo, since you picked Gunman Clive, why don't you tell us what that is?
Gunman Clive is a really good game that I really enjoyed, but I just, ever since it was pointed out to me, I can't really bring it up without talking about the amazing trailer that the game has.
Oh, I'll get to that.
Does anyone want to talk about the incredible, not at all reminiscent of Mighty Number 9 trailer?
Go ahead, Danny.
Okay.
I swear to God, this is a good game. I feel like this is the perfect kind of game to include on a little 3-game episode. I don't think it's anyone's favourite game in the world, but it's a little kind of... It's an easier contra / Metal Slug / I've never played Sunset Riders, but I'm guessing it's kind of like Sunset Riders.
It's more like Mega Man with a bit of Mario too.
Ah, I know why you're saying Mario 2, and I know.
Yeah, structurally this game is basically classic Mega Man, and I can say this from experience having played all 6 of those fucking games.
Oh, wow.
It has like the disappearing, reappearing platforms and stuff like that. The basic run, jump, and shoot mechanics. Jump and shoot. And it just does it with a weird graphical style, incorporates some elements from other games like the character Miss Johnson basically being Princess Peach with a gun, which is great. And she has like the delayed straight line jump thing that's really useful and makes Clive completely pointless to play as. And yeah, but it's like basically it doesn't do anything new mechanically. It's just all about the presentation and style and the fact you can also play as a duck.
Oh yeah, duck mode.
Yeah, it's just a weird little game. Go ahead, Danny, and tell us about the trailer because I know you're dying to.
From the creator of some other games, a generic old school side scroller. I'm reading off what's being said in this trailer. Weird artsy looking 3D graphics. This is all just over gameplay. Lots of brown. Some bosses and stuff. Those are bosses.
I'm wondering who's responsible for that trailer. Let me check real quick. think it had a publisher in
And
the
some
States.
more jumping and shooting. Oh, there's the duck mode.
Oh no, it was released by the same people who made it.
Yeah.
And
my
therein
God.
lies my problem. Okay. The thing the worst thing that's come out of indie games, in my opinion, more so than roguelike and survival horror with crafting elements. The worst thing that's come out of indie game development is indie developers trying to market their own games. Because they try to be the snarkiest motherfuckers alive. And it's the most annoying shit.
Hey, do you like Gunman Clive? Why? It sucks.
Buy it.
Like an animation on Tronne. But like everything, like I hate it. It feels bad. I don't want to play this game after watching that trailer. Because you didn't.
I
didn't
had beaten
sell
every
me.
mode of the game and I loved it, and then I watched the trailer and then I was like, now I don't want to play this game.
Like you're
I want to go
supposed
back in
sell
time and
your
be like,
game.
don't play it.
You want to like just being flippant with your own thing because you think it's funny isn't. That's not good. It's annoying and it's like, what is it? I'm trying to think of the name of. Like it was a terrible indie game name. I saw it once on Steam. I think it's like not another dungeon crawling RPG or something. Like that was the name. Because it's just like, oh god,
That
another.
sounds familiar.
And like that's a terrible name. I'd rather it just be called like Shadowcraft or whatever. Just
Well, to be fair, it caught your attention.
yeah, in like the worst way possible, in the way that makes me go like, I hate this. I'm never gonna play this. Cause like, I hate.
I feel the same about any game that uses simulator in its title.
Yeah, cause that got
Except
overused so
Shower with
quickly.
Your Dad Simulator.
Well, yes,
Obvious.
that's always the exception to everything.
Simulator got overused so quickly, and like I still think Simulator's a good name when it's like an actual simulator, like when it's from that series. But
It never is an actual simulator. There's like a game called Tank Girl Dating Simulator or something like that.
well,
It's a fucking dating
I'm thinking
sim.
more like like just like farming simulator or train simulator, like those series.
Oh yeah, it's fine for those because they're actually they're the games that simulator title eventually went around to make fun of in the first place.
Yeah. But like this is
And
just
they did it poorly because gamers are not funny.
yeah, it's not funny. It doesn't sell me on your game. Like it.
Oh god, I just remember DLC Quest, which like gets really funny towards the end, but until then you have to put up with like just thing appears reference, that's the joke.
It's
Probably the worst part of it is when they actually just straight up put Notch in a scene. He's like, hey, I like mine, so I'm in this mine.
Can't you like shoot
Also-
him with a gun though?
Nazis.
I
aren't
don't
real.
remember, but this is way before he lost his mind on Twitter and started defending Nazis. This is way before that.
But yeah, I don't like when I don't like negative marketing. When you try to market your thing by being excessively negative about it, like
I think they're all trying to pull a Josh Whedon, except no one knows why Josh Whedon writing was funny in the first place. And now I just realized I have picked the worst possible time to bring up Josh Whedon.
and then everyone realized Joss Whedon sucked. So
Yeah,
yeah,
pretty
like
much.
stuff like that, stuff like calling yourself the angry video game nerd. I hate it. It doesn't make me wanna be a fan of your product.
The angry
product or
video.
your
I'll
brand.
defend the angry video game nerd because he's not making fun of himself. He's just doing stupid shit because it sounded funny to him. He'll like poop on a game cartridge because that sounded funny to him. That's the extent of his sense of humor. He is pure. There is no cynicism there.
He's a pure cinnamon bun.
Yeah, this is this trailer's just it's cynical, and
Yeah. It's bad at being cynical too.
Yeah, it doesn't make me wanna play this game. It makes me hate this game.
I reckon like it could have worked if they'd like toned it down or just had like advertise the actual game and maybe have one or two like kind of winking references to like, hey, there sure is a lot of brown in this game. Ha ha ha. But seriously, it's quite good. And instead it's just like,
You know, I've actually seen this sort of advertising of a game work, but it's always with games with very niche audiences, and they're very aware of it. So when they get like certain review quotes, they'll like pop it up because they know their audience is like, he doesn't get it. That's funny to us. But that's not what this is.
Yeah, I can see it with like...
This is just like, my game sucks, buy it.
Like, I guess Undertale kind of did that a little with the... Like with the Yoko Taro quote for its PS4 release. Where he's...
And that was an actual quote?
Yeah. Where he was just like...
Which is great.
Where he was like, it's a good RPG, maybe. I don't know. I was drunk for most of it. Like, that's just funny.
And it's an actual quote, which makes it
yeah. It's a good quote, and it works for that tone. But this is just
yeah. But let's skip over the advertising for this for a bit, because I honestly do think this is a good game, and I'm glad I played it. And, you know, now that I'm able to play it with being able to see my character's avatar. You know what the weird thing is? This has Steam Cloud saving features, so all of my old data from when I first played it was still there, and I got way farther than I remembered. Like, I got through half of the game not being able to see my character at all. That's it, everyone. I'm good at video games. Suck it.
oh, we're talking about VVVVVV later, and then we'll see who's good at video games. Who's so good that he has a story about actually making a child cry. I actually do have notes for all these games, and for VVV I've just put tell the child crying story. That's all I've got.
Right now though, Gunman Clive. I'm surprised. I'm the only one that didn't like it. And I don't think that's colored at all by the trailer. I don't think that's colored at all by the trailer. I didn't like it.
I'm curious, do you have like a past with games like the original NES Mega Man games?
No. I played some of one of the Mega Man games, I can't remember. One of the 2D side-scrolling ones. It was one that was recommended to me. I played some of it. I didn't get very far because I didn't really...
Was it like original series or one of the spin-off series?
It was one of the numbered games. But
I really liked Mega Man 2, and I didn't even try any of the others. Because I played them for a bit, and I never got past a single stage in any of them. And then I just went...
For me, I had the Mega Man Anniversary Collection, so I had access to 1 through 8, plus the 2 arcade games, which were really fun. And I managed through a lot of screaming to beat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Wow.
And it was not easy. But I really loved those games, even though I couldn't do the pause glitch cheat to beat the Yellow Devil in number 1. Or was it number 2? My memory's blurred at this point. Yeah, you couldn't do that in the Anniversary Edition, so I had to learn how to do it.
Okay, on second thoughts, actually, you probably are better at video games then.
Oh no, it took me years to do that, because those games are bastards. This is pretty breezy. But yeah, it takes a lot from those games, like the platforms that disappear and reappear I mentioned, the platforms that drop off after you get on them and stay on them for a while, that sort of thing. And just like the way you move, how fast you move, the shooting mechanic, it's all classic Mega Man to the core.
It's straight up a Mega Man clone. I don't think it's a good one. I don't think it's a good Mega Man clone. Like, I liked what I played of the Mega Man game I played. I didn't get very far because I sucked at it. It was too hard for me. Like, I'd get creamed by the bosses. But
Yeah, that's understandable. If you don't know like the pattern you're supposed to beat the bosses in, so you have their instant kill gun on them, it's really difficult.
But this, like, it wasn't hard. It just wasn't fun.
Yeah.
I don't think. And I honestly had a lot of design problems with it.
Yeah, that's fair.
I
like how it's mostly empty.
No, not even that. Like, I get like the first problem I had outright was because I know it takes this from Mega Man, where Mega Man you have your screen and then you go to the edge of the screen, you move over, you can kill enemies, but if you move back to the other screen, then go back, the enemies respawn. I'm completely fine with that mechanic. I don't think that mechanic is implemented well in this game. Because it doesn't...
I think it's because of the screen size. You're not getting nearly as enough space as you would in like an old Mega Man game. So when enemies respawn, you really feel it.
Yeah, it's not... because it's not a tile set like in Mega Man. Like where each screen is a tile. It's not like that, because you'll just scroll for a while, and then you'll just suddenly move over for some reason. And even then, you can move off screen. And I had enemies respawn while still on screen, and that was the worst part. I remember there was one part after, I think it was after the train car section, which was bad. I'll get to that. After the train car section, once it introduces the disappearing platforms, you have this pit with a dog in it, and the dog's too small to get hit by your bullets unless you're crouching. And so you miss your jump, you fall into the pit. If you fall in at the wrong time, you get hit by the dog and take damage. You have to get lucky to be able to crouch with the dog on the other side and then just fire off 2 bullets to kill the dog. But when you walk back over to get to the ladder, which is right there, the dog just immediately respawns. Doesn't respawn off screen, it respawns on screen. And so if you keep missing those jumps, you just keep taking damage from falling in on top of that respawning dog, which is basically on the same screen for all intents and purposes. And I had that happen with enemies a bunch of times, where I just move back a sliver, it's not off screen, but it just starts infinitely respawning, and it made me so angry, and that just felt like bad game design. And I feel like this game could be more, but it feels like a prototype or like a beta. It doesn't feel quite finished to me.
Which character did you play as?
I played as the girl, Mrs. Johnson, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely easier with her because of the jump move she has. Like, this game is really frustrating as Clive, unless like you're really old school Mega Man nut.
Can't Clive shoot diagonally or something?
I couldn't figure out how to do that if he could. I think he's just like Mrs. Johnson, but worse.
That is one of the few things in the game, because like even though I did like the game, it was kind of a low-key liking the whole way through. Like, the levels I thought they were okay. I thought that the power-ups were generic but okay. The bosses are okay. There's nothing... It's a decent time waster for me. And given that it like only cost me like £2, although I did buy it before Brexit, so it's probably like £500 now.
I was surprised by how easy the bosses was, even like the final boss. Like, you can't do the stand in one corner of the room and just keep attacking like in Zelda 2, which I know it was referencing when you hit like the Shadow Clive or whatever it was.
Clive.
But if you like stay on one platform for a bit and just keep shooting, he will walk into your bullets, and then you just gotta jump away before he hits your platform, and it's that easy.
I had a problem.
It's kind of a joke.
I had a problem with the first boss. So the game...
Oh yeah, the guy with the giant gun.
The game performs...
Oh, the timing on that guy is hard.
The game performs very, very well for me, like very smoothly through every single level. And then I get to that first boss, and my frame rate just dies. And and it just gets really unresponsive because the frame rate's dying. And so like it was an easy boss, but like for some reason, just as soon as I got to that boss, like the game performed impeccably. Everywhere else, it was just that boss, just kills it. So I had a lot of trouble on what was an actual easy boss because of that.
That is bizarre. The only problem I had with him was I thought my hitbox was a little too big, but that's about it.
The hitboxes in this game are weird.
Yeah.
They're very weird in my opinion.
About the thing I'm gonna remember from this game is the art style, because it's so like minimalistic and simple, and it's just like I've never seen anything quite like it. It's charming, but yeah, that's about all it is. There is a sequel for this game out, like on a bunch of platforms by now, and they added like things like animal rides and stuff like that. So maybe we'll check that out in the future. But for now, it's okay.
I said that everything in the game is kind of average. The one thing that I would say I really liked, other than obviously playing as a duck, is that they really did a female character right by... just because Miss Johnson... I feel like I should give them a medal. Just congratulations on not screwing this up in many of the obvious ways that you could have.
She's just a Southern belle who's better than the main character in every way, and she has a gun, and that's great.
Yep.
She's got a big old wig and a big old dress, and she's still better than Clive in every way imaginable.
They could have made her worse than Clive, or they could have made her an exact copy of Clive, or they could have, I don't know, just not put her in. But they didn't do any of those things, and so they deserve a medal for not punching themselves in the face.
Dear Nintendo, make game where you're Peach with gun. Thank you.
That's Mario and Rabbids. You just asked for Mario and Rabbids.
Yeah.
Peach with
And
gun.
there's also like a little Peach rabbit running around for some reason.
Yep, taking selfies.
I've heard that game is good, and that's like the weirdest thing I've heard all year.
It's Mario XCOM. It just looks like Mario XCOM, and XCOM's really fun. But I'm like, I want this game without Rabbids.
Mario
I like the
XCOM,
Rabbids, fight me.
XCOM on.
I did.
I like the Rabbids because I knew them before the Minions were a thing. So I don't have the same, oh my god, they're just the Minions problem everyone else does, because I remember them from the game that sold me on motion controls.
I knew them before the Minions were a thing, and even as a kid I was like, I don't like these things. I don't like these monsters. Not I was scared of them, I was just like, I don't like them.
Oh my god, what if there's a scene in that game where they meet Waluigi and they just go wham at each other for 5 hours?
That's gonna happen, for sure.
I would pay money. I would pay money just for that.
I won't get...
But anyways, yeah, that was Gunman Clive. Okay game. Let's move on to my pick, Verdict Guilty. Verdict Guilty. Interesting little fighting game I found one day when I was just browsing through Steam. It's from a company called Retro Army Limited. They make a lot of classic style games. And this one caught my eye because it's all purples and blues and like looks almost exactly like the Street Fighter 2 game I always wished existed. So I bought it, convinced my editor to let me do an article on it. It's only $3 and I fucking adore it. It's so good, guys. It's so good.
I wasn't expecting...
It's a modern day fighting game that's good, that has like no budget and doesn't rely on anime girl panty shots, and it's good. It's like a unicorn. Seriously, how did this game happen? I just found it and I was like, oh my god, it's good.
I wasn't expecting going into this episode to be saying this, because I'm not a huge fighting game fan. I only really have ever liked 3 fighting games in my whole life. One of them's...
And they're all Super Smash Brothers?
One of them is just generally Super Smash Brothers. One of them is this online like Cartoon Network game named like Teen Titans Battle Blitz, and the third one.
Oh my god, I remember that. Motherfucker, my childhood.
And the third game doesn't actually exist. I just said I had 3 to just emphasise the point that I don't like fighting games very much. See, I wasn't expecting to say this. Verdict Guilty might be my favourite game out of this 3. I really loved it.
Wow. I feel bad keeping this negative train rolling. I don't want to be this negative about these games. I didn't like it. I wanted to like it. I wanted to. It looked interesting, and the character art's kind of weird, but I loved the background art, and the color palette's amazing.
Yeah, this game is like sprite graphics heaven.
But
I think the only
like the character art, I didn't like. It just looked so weird and awkward, and its animations were just kind of stiff. I thought, not quite clear what was happening, but I'm not a huge fighting game fan either. I don't play a lot of fighting game fans. The fighting games. What always brings me to fighting games is the character roster. Like, do they interest me? And that's always the thing that gets me interested in fighting games. And I mean, it doesn't really have character. They give off a few lines, and I know that's really reminiscent of older fighting games, but I don't like older fighting games.
No, I'm gonna have to argue here, because if you actually played all the story modes, you realize every single character in this game is a perfect cinnamon roll.
That's another problem I have with the game.
Except maybe Johan, because he does murders. But everyone else.
I tried to get in the story mode with some characters before I just like switched over to arcade to try them all out, just because I got into the story mode, and then...
Yeah, like the missions where it tells you to only do one certain move to teach you it, but sometimes it's like the worst move.
Yeah, you can only do damage with this one move, but hey, the other characters can damage you with everything. So, and like, I'd be bad at the inputs, and... or sometimes it's just like, it's just not a good move. And like I couldn't get past them, so I just switched over to the arcade. So I didn't see much of the characters because of that. But
yeah, like Siu's fucking bird move, and just a bird goes across the screen.
That was the only one of those missions I could manage to actually do. I couldn't do any of the gun ones. And playing the arcade mode, like one character after another, just over and over, I was struck by the lack of variety in character gameplay. I didn't get, like, I don't know how like deep it comes. All my complaints about this game are very superficial, because I don't know much about fighting games, so I can't really give deep insight into the gameplay or anything, or like what it could improve to be better, because I don't know. But
that's fair enough, because one of the problems I've always had with like fighting games is how complicated the inputs get. Mm-hmm. And this is actually way on the simpler side, to the point it's just like copying a bunch of Street Fighter inputs like verbatim, or even simplifying them. But if you're not familiar with that at the least bit, it's kind of confusing, which, yeah, I get that.
It felt too simple to me, and I hate complex inputs, but it felt too simple, because you have, I don't know if you unlock more characters, but you have 8 base characters.
I know, it's just 8 base characters.
Okay, like basically 4 cops, 4 criminals, and
yeah,
all the cops have handcuffs and a gun. Like 7 of the characters have a gun move. 4
except Gun, ironically.
Except Gun, ironically. He's the only one that doesn't. He was like the most different of the characters, but he was also like the one you don't want to pick, because he seemed like the worst character, because he didn't have this stuff that every single other character had. But
it really depends on what your style is, because I can tell you right now, each of these characters is based heavily on like a Street Fighter 2 character, Jeong, the guy with the sad backstory and dead wife and stuff, is like a mixture of Ken and Akuma. Siyu, the straight-laced cop, is basically the Ryu of the game, really well balanced, and Jeong is the sloppy version. Minso,
Chun-Li,
the girl cop, yeah, she's basically
Chun-Li.
just Chun-Li with like a cool stun move. Reese he's interesting because his story has nothing to do with the rest of the game, and his entire story is just him going around getting into fights with people for no reason whatsoever, and he's annoyed by it. He is bizarre because he's just like a mixture of Dalsum, the guy with the stretchy arms, and Blanca, the guy who can electrocute himself.
Yeah, he's just like an alien out of nowhere, which is weird, but whatever. Fighting games.
He's not an alien because because in the story mode he's looking for an alien who ended up assessing his partner, but there is something weird going on with him. The criminals, on the other hand, are a bit harder to put down. Like, I've never quite seen a character like Jay, the Yakuza guy who does the breakdance moves. He's like really fun to use because he doesn't have many offensive options, but that breakdance move of his lets him breathe easier, like make a lot of room to do combos and stuff that other characters can't do. Johan, the terrorist guy with all the bombs, is sort of like Vega, except he has a lot more projectile moves. Gun is basically the Zangief. He's the grappler who has moves that let him charge in to stay in an opponent's space. And Hyuk is like if you gave the boxer character, I think it's Balrog in the US, bombs and like guns. And he's just like a big slab of meat that shoots things. Like, on the surface, they all play very similar, but once you really get into how their special moves work, you realize just how different each one of them is and how they all have their own ups and downs.
See, the problem with that kind of is, I felt like there was no incentive to find these different playstyles. Because I did one playstyle that got me through arcade mode with like every character. Grab. Just grab. Add some square hits in there, but just grab. Because the grab it's OP as hell. Especially with the
It's interesting
the
you bring
handcuffs.
that up because when the game first released, every character was limited to only one handcuff grab or one bomb grab.
I feel like that's how it should have been, because all I did was grab. Because with the cop characters, all 4 cops have handcuffs. So, like, just to explain to the listeners, it's a button press, just one button, and it's instant. There's no startup or anything, and it's blockable, but you can just hit that right trigger just over and over while they're blocking, and as soon as they stop blocking, it's an instant connect. And if you have the cop characters with the handcuffs, they can't attack for a brief period, so it does damage and you get free hits. And
yeah, if I remember correctly, Gun and Jay have a move that like reverses controls if it's
Yes.
like a human character, or makes computer characters groggy, while Johan and Hugh actually have bombs that go off after a set amount of time, which are hilarious because the other player can just get up in your space and blow you up with them.
That was actually interesting, I thought, but because it can blow you, it's interesting because it can also blow you up. And I had, when I was doing arcade mode, I had characters who would do that to me, and so I would just go up to them with more health, and sometimes, when it blew up, sometimes it would end in a draw because it took both their health bars, but if I had enough health, it would just kill them and I'd win the match. So it was interesting, but it feels a little too double-edged because of that. And also, it's like it takes 15 seconds to explode, and like I would be in arcade modes using the criminal characters who have the bomb for their grab, and I would hit them with it, and it would start the 15-second countdown, and I would beat them before it could go off, just by spamming grab over and over and over. And it
depends on what difficulty were you playing on?
probably normal, because I didn't like get a difficulty option.
I remember that a lot of the time, especially in story mode, the computer gets pretty smart when I try stuff like that and will actually punish me for it.
I would start losing later on, but because you just get an easy continue, I would just like continue until it worked. I wouldn't have to change my playstyle at all. I would just go until it worked, until I could catch them.
I'd really love to see this game get online play one day, because I think it would benefit a ton from it. Like, people who actually know what they're doing, punishing people using cheap tactics like this, that'd be neat.
I think it would incentivize actual balancing, which I would.
But then it
make
would
more
bring
fun.
up another problem in that fighting game fans who take things seriously are the most boring people on earth.
Yeah.
Have you ever met a fighting game fan? Like a real one who like goes to tournaments?
Nope. I've only known Smash players.
Well, they're kind of in the same league if they're melee, but basically they're all about, they do not know how to have fun at a certain point, and are just all about, okay, what's the best way to win? And it's kind of hilarious when they lose if they're that person to like a guy who barely knows what they're doing, and it happens sometimes, and it's always hilarious. It's actually why that game Dive Kick exists, is partly not just because like a mechanical experiment to see what happens if you simplify the formula to just like 2 moves, but it's also because a lot of the game is making fun of fighting game fans and like actual people who play fighting game tournaments.
Yeah.
Like, one of the villains of the game is just straight up a guy who's infamous for fixing a Guilty Gear tournament. And he's like responsible for every bad thing that happened in the game, including someone dying. Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about Dive Kick one day.
I hope
There's a
so. I
Dive
need
Kick
to-
mode.
I need to play that
in
sometime.
Guilty.
Oh yeah, before we continue, I should mention that I've played the story mode, and I was surprised by something cool it did. There's not a single playable character in this game is technically a villain.
Except maybe Johan.
No, even he doesn't really understand what's going on, and once he does, he turns tail completely. Like, the story for each of them is different. Jeong is the most generic. His like wife or girlfriend died, and he's mad about it. He wants to go get revenge. The most interesting thing that happens is that after he beats up like the evil prosecutor guy with like the flamethrower briefcase, you find out that guy's motivation, and it turns out he has a similar backstory and realizes he's kind of lost sight of what he was trying to do in the first place, and it's just like, I did not expect that. Siyu is just the straight-laced cop. There's not much to say about him other than he hates police corruption. Minso has no fucking idea what's happening at all.
Just looking
she's
for
just
her
trying
dog.
to find her. Yeah, she's just trying to find her dog, and just gets caught up in all sorts of crazy shit. Reese is just trying to find an alien, and everyone just fights him for apparently no reason. Jay's story is adorable because he's basically just doing Yakuza grunt work, but then he finds this kid and helps him out and tries to be friendly with him, and then you find out he's actually a really nice guy and like does genuinely heroic things just for this one kid he met. Johan was tricked by his master and turns tail once he realizes what his actions are used for. Gun was an innocent man who was put behind bars under false pretenses, who wants to clear his name. And Hyuk, the most generic looking bad guy you can imagine, was doing that robbery so he can pay for his friend's medical bills. Every single character is not a bad guy, and that's just baffling to me, and like ends with a cheesy quote for each story, giving some sort of Aesop, and it's just the cutest fucking thing. It's just like it's weird because the intro implies it's going to be much darker than that, with like a guy holding a shotgun up to a woman's head, and then you beat each story and it's just like, love conquers everything. It's adorable.
I thought it was a bit weird in Minso's storyline, because she spends so long looking for her dog, and then it looks like she's about to find her dog, and then this little, like, anime child named Tomomo just like runs up and steals the dog, and then you have to play a board game to get it back. Continuity.
Yeah, this game just has so much heart behind it. The graphics, I think, are some of the most beautiful sprite work I've seen since Cowboy, which is... I'm actually a little surprised I'm saying that, because Cowboy is like a fucking masterpiece that took nearly a decade to make. Every single sprite in that game is like handmade. There are barely any effects whatsoever. It is like masterclass stuff. And Verdict Guilty is such a cheap little game, but like it feels on that level of whole, and it's really impressive to me. I even like a lot of the character animations, even if they're a little stilted, because they have so much personality to them. And like if you've played the Street Fighter games like I have, you can appreciate all the very obvious references they're making, like Jiang turning his back to the camera, like Kunlo, but instead of like getting a cool symbol on his back, he just drinks some beer. Like stuff like that is just adorable to me. It's like the perfect retro game. Like it's based on something very clearly, but it has a lot of love for that thing, and it does some of its own tricks in the process, so it's not just like a rip-off. It's its own thing, and I appreciate it for that. Plus it's $3, so you know, it's kind of a steal.
I just loved all of the gameplay. And I think, like what I said about how Gunman Clive deserves a small, patronizing medal for just not screwing up with Miss Johnson, Verdict Guilty just deserves 500 medals for not screwing up every negative thing that I associate with fighting games. Like, oh, these characters all have really cheap moves. Actually, the characters in these games, they have moves that aren't cheap, but they're very powerful. But if you use them like 2 or 3 times, the next time you use them, you have to like reload the gun you're shooting or recharge the taser that you're using. So they're never too overpowering. And oh, the story mode, I hate. Oh, the unlimited continues. Never mind, that's fine. You don't have to worry about dying to the final boss. Oh, I hate having to learn these moves. Oh, actually, in story mode, every single character gets like, here's a level where you do basic punches and kicks. Now you're using your projectile. Now you're using a special combo. Now you're using your special attack. And then you've got a little over half of the story missions to go, and it's like you now know every single move that they can do, and you didn't have to study a guide or anything. It just sat you down and said, I'm going to teach you all the moves to the game, and then you're going to play it. And it'll be really good.
Yeah, so I think you know my stance on this game. Love it. Oh, and I wrote in my notes, Jay is bae.
I wrote in my jokes, make Ian Miles Gyong joke. But I can't be bothered. So let's just say Gyong has a brother who's like a really shitty hack journalist.
Any last words, Danny?
It's another fighting game that's not for me.
Fair enough.
That's fair enough.
Anyway, let's go ahead and get on to Danny's pick, VVVVVV.
Yeah. Now we can hear me say some positive things.
Man, I hated this game.
Oh.
I think we can all
I'm
get on the
sorry.
same page and agree that this game is very good.
This is
But go ahead and...
one of my...
Go ahead and tell us what this is.
It's on the short list of like my favorite games. It's a super simple and short game. Like it's just a super simple platformer about this little guy, this little smiley guy. He's a captain of a spaceship, and you and your crew are exploring the galaxy when, oh no, something happens, and you get transported to this weird sort of dimension, and you have to go find your crewmates because they're all trapped around this derelict ship. And you have your arrow keys to move, and then you have one button that reverses gravity. And you go through just a ton of puzzle rooms, each with their own name. Every screen has its own name. and just reversing gravity to try and get through them. And it's a hard trial and error game and once you get through it, you just get, it's sort of like, I guess it's an open world, but you just travel around the ship until you find the next stretch of puzzle rooms with one of your friends in them and go save them. And it's got like simple Commodore 64 graphics and one of my favorite video game soundtracks of all time. And I should also mention, like, briefly introducing, I should also mention it's developed by Terry Kavanagh, who the only other game a lot of people have heard about that he's made is Super Hexagon, which is another amazing game. But I'm looking at his wiki, and he's made a lot of games. Since 2008, he has released 50 games.
Wow.
Developed by himself.
Damn.
50. Like, 50 on the dot. With the last one, and he hasn't even released one this year. The last one he released came out in 2016. So in 8 years, he released 50 games. Dude's a beast. And he does a lot of freeware stuff. He has a lot of freeware stuff on his website.
That's a lot of Game Jam projects.
Oh, yeah. And this is one of the few games he has actually, like, up for sale up on Steam. And it's really good.
Oh yeah, I wrote my own summation of my notes here. It goes, small space people, oh no time warp, signs, manipulate gravity for small space people, and then in all capitals, it makes me so angry. It is snowing on
But
Mount
they're so
Fuji.
smiley. Smiley little men.
Oh, and I also wrote down, because I saw this when I was on the Wikipedia page, there's just a picture of the sad elephant that's hidden in the game, and the caption just says, the sad elephant near Space Station 2. It has absolutely nothing to do with any of the paragraphs on the page. It's just like, the sad elephant near Space Station 2.
Sad elephant.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Wikipedia. It's very insightful.
I was super excited to play this game for the podcast because I love this game. My first time through, it took me, like, I don't know for sure, just because I went over my save for this one, which I shouldn't have done. But just looking at my time on Steam, I'm gonna guess it took maybe like 3.5, 4 hours my first time through. This time through, it took me 1 hour and 21 minutes.
Yeah, it's a pretty short game, but it feels a lot longer in the moments.
Oh yeah. And it's super challenging, but also, like, it's also really forgiving with when you miss a jump and die. You just get put at the last clear point, which are all over the place.
Hang on, I wanted to mention this because I've never felt this in the game before, but I have a bit of a fear of heights. So when I was playing this game, the first time I played it, and like when I was playing it now for this, I was kind of freaked out by the fact that you have to walk around outside the spaceship and like see space in the background and like reverse gravity and hope to God you don't just fly out into the infinite abyss. Is like legitimately one of the most unnerving things I've ever done in a game, and I've played a few horror games, which is bizarre.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, is this game gonna let me accidentally kill myself by throwing myself out into the infinite void? It's like, no.
It's always
Don't.
It's always just a super unnerving feeling when you're roaming around and you reverse gravity and you just go for screen after screen with nothing, and you don't have the map completed, so you don't know what's up there or when you're gonna hit something. But like that,
Yeah, and the whole time your little guy's just like smiling like, oh
Yay.
boy, I might die in the infinite abyss of
Yay.
space.
But
Woo!
I love the exploring aspect between the levels a lot. Like just exploring this weird little derelict ship that it's not even really shaped like a ship, but who cares? Because it's fun.
Oh yeah, did you play it with that old school filter on that makes the screen sometimes jump and all staticky?
No, I did not.
Because if you didn't, you're not a real gamer.
I don't really like to play with old school filters on in any game.
I love doing that every single time. VA11 Hall A, played it with the filter. Made it look like a PC 98 game. Punch Club did it. Got like a little waffle thing going on. Reminded me of playing an old arcade game. VVVVVV's filter is the most spot on thing I've ever seen, to the point that it actually intrudes on playing the game. And I loved it. I just like every screenshot I took was just in that mode. It's such a cool aesthetic. It reminds me of like that glitch thing you see in a lot of alt games these days.
Oh yeah.
Like in that haunted house game. What was it called? Anatomy. That's it. Like that game looks really freaky when it starts just glitching out. Yeah, stuff like that. I love that aesthetic.
So Elmo,
So
I'm
Yeah.
led to believe you have a story about this game.
I do, but it's a long one, so I honestly like don't mind if you want to cover like every aspect of VVVVV before I tell the story, because you know the soundtrack is great. I like all the areas have their own difficulty curve, which is great. It's one of those games where I honestly don't think I can say a single negative thing about it.
talk about the kid.
Okay. So, oh boy. My sister was house sharing with a couple a while back, and they had a kid named... Okay, I just realised, like, hey, it's kind of fucked up how you call yourself Elmo, but you're about to name this kid with Asperger's on this podcast. So let's not name him. Can I...
His name is now Chicken Nugget.
Okay, so Chicken Nugget was... He had like a PS4, I think, and my sister mentioned to him that I play video games, and he got really excited, and he wanted to show me all this stuff he was doing on Minecraft, and I didn't care. but I said, hey, PS4, I think isn't VVVVV on PS4? And I had my laptop, and I showed him a bit, and he thought it looked rubbish. But then I was like, hey, move around, try moving the gravity. And he got into it, and then I had to leave. But I was visiting my sister again in a few weeks, and when I came round, he had got it on the PS4, and you'll never guess what bit of the game he was on.
Gravitron.
No, doing things
Sad
the
old-
hard way. Which,
dear.
if you don't know, this game has 20 collectible trinkets. Most of them are little optional areas or tiny challenges. But the most notorious challenge in the game is this one, like, 6-screen corridor where you have to flip gravity, go through, like, 6 different rooms filled with spikes, land on a platform that disappears, flip back immediately, come back, and the best thing is, you're doing all of this to get past, like, a block that's a pixel high. To get the trinket. It's a very difficult trinket in the game. Took me a while to get it the first time I played, and since I'm quite good at doing difficult stuff in video games, but only the kind of difficult stuff that doesn't honestly require any skill. It just requires you to throw yourself at it until you learn to get good. And that's what this is. At least that's what doing things the hard way is. And he was on that bit. He said, oh, I've been doing this for a few hours. I'm stuck. And in my head, I thought, you know what's going to happen if I get this trinket? He's going to say, wow, you're the coolest person I've ever met. This is... I can't wait to tell all my friends about cool Uncle Elmo, who beat this really difficult bit of my game. There are no downsides at all to this. So I say, like, hey, can I have a go at getting this trinket? And he's like, yeah, sure, you probably won't be able to. And he hands me the controller. And I'm not saying this to brag, but flip, right, left, I go around the block left, then right at the end, bounce off the platform, make it down. Usually it takes me like 4 or 5 goes to get it. First time landing right next to the trinket. And I'm not saying anything, but I'm just thinking to myself, all I am thinking is the word smug. And I just give him back the controller. And I am thinking, here comes the, wow! You're the coolest Instead he goes, I've been trying to do that for hours! Throws the controller at a wall, runs out of the room, storms up the stairs, slams the door to his room, locks it, and his parents come in. And his parents are like younger than me. I'm almost... Okay, I don't actually want to say what my age is, but they're a few years younger than me, and I was like, I don't know what happened. He was playing the game and he got really angry or something. and then a while later, my sister went and house shared with someone else, so I've never seen them again. But there you go. I think the controller like broke. There was a dent in the wall, and I just left and never went back. So,
Holy shit!
So there you go. The worst thing is, I legitimately remember right before doing it thinking, wow, this is one of like the only times in my entire life where being good at video games is going to come in handy and not have negative repercussions. And instead I made some kid smash it.
Oh god.
So,
Man,
there we go.
That story is way
I don't know
better
where we go from
than
that.
I expected it to be.
I have no idea where to go from
So,
here.
VVVVV,
So that was IndieCent.
10 out of 10. IndieCent, making children cry since 2016.
I'm fine with that being all we say about the game. Because I don't know where to go from there.
I'm legit crying.
So, anyone else have any interesting stories about the game?
Nope.
No, I think you topped it. Yeah, I'm never gonna top that story. God.
You created a supervillain.
I'm really not sure what else you can say about this game. Oh yeah, one of the endings has all the little people you saved form a band.
Mm-hmm.
And they're smiling,
Yep.
all colorful with instruments.
Yep.
And that's very good. Oh yeah, I like it whenever you talk to them and they're like all happy and then someone says something negative and the other one's like, oh no! And then you hear a little sound effect and their mouth goes a frowny.
It's so cute.
This is a very cute game. I like it. It's very good. We all agree. We can't really go any further here because we've all been topped.
Yeah.
The worst thing is, it took him years, and he finally got over it. And then one day, he went to a game store in Croydon, ready to play his favourite game, Street Fighter, the movie, the game. And he just...
I'll pick Ryu.
I think this might honestly be the best episode we've ever recorded. Holy shit.
Oh.
I wonder if he went to Communications Day 2017.
Oh my god, let's just wrap this up and give our general thoughts on all three games. What would you consider the best and what would you consider the worst? Let's go ahead and start with you, Danny.
I mean, I consider VVVVV the best. I think I'd consider Gunman Clive the
And-
worst.
Fair enough. Elmo?
I consider VVVVV the best, but it's the best in the same way that, like, remember Shower with Your Dad Simulator was like a proper real game and not an indie experiment. And so it was the best out of those 5. The one I was most impressed with and surprised with was Verdict Guilty.
And I'm guessing worst is Gunman
yeah,
Clive.
sorry, Clive.
Yeah, pretty much on the same page as Clive, and I did enjoy it quite a bit. I thought it was neat, but like the other two blow it out of the water. I'm gonna go with Verdict Guilty as my favorite because it just hits all the right aesthetic notes for me. But goddamn, VVVVVV was really close. I just think it was a bit too hard for me because you don't want to be around me when I'm angry at a video game.
I know some people like that.
But yeah, 3.
You just hand the controller to Elmo for the final challenge.
But yeah, that's our first panel choice. Gunman Clive, it's okay. Verdict Guilty, some of us really like it. VVVVVV, we all agree is very good. And like Elmo shouldn't be allowed around children.
Well, we knew that from the beginning.
We're gonna go ahead and do a normal episode next time, and I picked out an interesting game for us. I was actually going back and forth on this because my original plan was Saturday morning RPG, which includes an actual sequence where the Transformers tell you not to do drugs. I'm not making that up. Oh, and there's one mission where you're just riding around and the mission pops up and it says, "Learn the true meaning of Christmas." We're going to get to that game one day, trust me. But then I changed my mind. I was thinking, oh, what about if I made Elmo play another Yuri game?
Yeah.
But then
Now you're speaking my language.
But then I realized I didn't really have one that I felt would make a good full episode on me, and I didn't want to feel like paying money for another.
Damn it.
I was considering a high school romance, which apparently has one of the Skull Girl devs doing art for it. But then I looked through my wish list and I saw something that was on sale that you should all get as soon as we're done recording here. And I figured, okay, yes, we're going to play that. And that game is a game published by Devolver Digital, who you may remember from like Broforce, Not a Hero, Hotline Miami, and so on. And that game is called Stories Untold, an experimental text adventure game that looks like it was inspired by the entirety of 1980s horror, and it looks so good, guys. It looks so good. I have no idea what it is, but I want it in my veins. It's like the fucking Stranger Things font. Yeah, I figured this, since October's coming up, I figured I'd just pick a horror game anyways, and we have fun with that. So, join us next time for Stories Untold.
That could be our new tagline. IndieCent. Some stories are better left untold.